I'm here to talk about a very special individual. This is a special eyewitness, and his name is Melvin Null. He had an absolutely fantastic UFO sighting on the night of January 5th, 2000 in Southern Illinois. So it's about 4 a.m. He's coming back in his pickup truck after delivery. It's still dark, and he goes out of his car, walking toward the building, and he sees a strange white light. He walks into the building, not thinking much of it, comes back out a few minutes later and sees that same light, but this time it's getting larger and larger. And what he ends up seeing is something nothing short of absolutely miraculous. He said he saw a single-story ranch with a penthouse on top. It was black in color, rectangular in shape. On one side of the craft, it had a series of vertical window panes that were illuminated from the inside with a bright white light shining out. There was a series of red small lights in a square formation on the bottom, and then an additional group of white lights on the side of the craft. Now, he was a half a mile away from it. He said it was the size of a football field. This gentleman is not lying to us. He's a regular guy. You could call him a blue-collar worker. There's no reason for this gentleman to lie, and I want to fill you in with more details. I invite everyone to take a real good look at this gentleman right here. This is Melvin Null. And I've got the newspaper clipping here. This is Bellevue News, Democrat, August 8th, 2018. And I just want to highlight where I got this information here. And I find him to be absolutely credible. Now, if you look to the right side of this article, it actually has the transcript between the Lebanon Police Dispatch and Officer Ed Barton.
I received a call from Highland PD in reference to a truck driver named Null that stopped in. He said that there was a flying object in the area of Lebanon. Could you check the area?
Did they say if the truck driver was DUI or anything?
She said he was serious.
Just a quick question. If I happen to find it, what am I supposed to do with it? Be advised, there's a very bright white light east of town, and it keeps changing colors. I'll go over there and see if maybe it's an aircraft. Doesn't look like an aircraft, though. That's affirmative. It's not the moon, and it's not a star. Would you contact Scott Air Force Base and see if they have anything flying in this area, please?
I see something, but I don't know what the heck it is.
I've got that object in sight also. It's huge.
What does it look like to you?
It's kind of Y-shaped.
This is absolutely ground zero for Melvin Null's sighting, 4 a.m., January 5th, 2000, and you've got my star there that indicates where he was, and this is the Funland in Highland, Illinois miniature golf course. I've got a flight path here. These red arrows indicate the direction of flight. So he's in Highland, and this craft, this interesting, you could call it a single-story ranch with a penthouse on top, cuts across his miniature golf course at 4 in the morning, and you can see it's moving from the northeast to the southwest. I want to take you to an interesting quote by our witness Melvin Null, and this is published in the Mount Carmel Daily Republican Register on 1/13 of 2000. And here he says, quote, "It was all lit up and so low that someone could have waved at me out the window." I love it. I love it. From Melvin Null. And we've got this newspaper article here, St. Louis Post-Dispatch, January 12, 2000. It says, UFO sighting brings media attention. Investigative team to Southern Illinois. Credibility of witnesses piques interest. What you're looking at here is the actual MUFON report, and this is the original sketch. So on the upper part of this report, you've got a bottom view that shows the configuration of the craft itself. It's got the red lights, and then below that, he's got another view here, which would kind of be an end view with some of these illuminated windows here. So I thought, how in the world am I going to illustrate this properly? And I spent a lot of time trying to get this pinned down correctly, and this is the absolute best I can do, what you see here. Now, it's a lot closer than he actually saw, because he said it was about a half a mile away, but we got a little bit of a dusting of snow on the miniature golf course. He's basically all suited up in his winter coat. We've got the pickup truck, and here comes this single-story ranch with a penthouse on top. We've got the illuminated windows. We've also got the end view, which will be on the right side, with also a group of illuminated windows. And he did talk about, and it's referenced in the drawing, these smaller red lights in a square formation on the bottom of the craft. Now, as this thing is flying over the miniature golf course, it's not just disappearing off it to the distance. And he said that this thing was about the size of a football field. This must have been absolutely incredible. Now, once he saw this, he decided, I need to tell someone. So he drove to the Highland Police Department and he filed a personal report of his UFO sighting. Now, what we've got here is a sequence of police UFO sightings. And I've kind of optimized this map here. And we're going to start on the upper right. So number 1 arrow, pointing directly to Highland, Illinois. That's our good friend Melvin Null at the miniature golf course. Flight track is from the northeast to the southwest. So Lebanon with Officer Ed Barton, who had an interesting sighting. Craft made a flat 180-degree turn and then skedaddled out of there immediately. Further going to the southwest, we've got Shiloh. Officer David Martin got a good look at the understructure of the craft, the tubes, the pipes, the cylinders. Very near in proximity to Scott Air Force Base. Moving over to the southwest, Millstadt. Officer Craig Stevens got a good look at the bottom. He talked about starfield camouflage. And then it looks like the craft made a northwestern track over Dupont that would be southwest of East St. Louis. I did some AutoCAD drawings of this. This is long ago. And I tried to look at the witness testimony and model up each of the craft. Now, what we're dealing with here is 2 scenarios. Either we've got 4 different types of craft, or we're dealing with one craft that was seen by multiple witnesses at different times, different locations, and they're mistaking it as one vehicle. It's either one of those 2. Now, when you look and read the testimony from the police officers, it's very clear, repeat, it's very clear that we are dealing with at least 3 separate triangular vehicles. And we're also dealing with what Melvin Null described as a single-story ranch with a penthouse on top. I trust the credibility and reliability of these police officers. And the reference for this is absolutely in MUFON Journal, March of 2000. So I want to give credit to where I'm getting this information. We've got the Clinton County News, January 13th, 2000. A couple of days after this event. Off to the right, I've got a really nice cleaned up photo of Officer Ed Barton. And then in this article, it says, Lebanon officer witnesses UFO. And here he says, quote, he got out of his vehicle and watched the massive triangle hover over his head. This is 4:10 a.m. So this is just a few minutes after Melvin Null had his sighting. It goes on here. In less than 3 seconds, the object performed a flat turn as if rotating and shot through the sky to the southwest end of Shiloh. This is at Barton. So you can see, once he got a good look at it, it did a flat 180-degree turn like it was on a turntable. No banking whatsoever. And that's interesting because of this special note right here. This flat turn maneuver was also reported during the Hudson Valley boomerang wave of the early 1980s and also the Belgium Triangle 1989 to 1990. So in 1983, multiple people on March 24th, 1983, basically stated that they witnessed a large boomerang-shaped craft hovering over the Taconic State Parkway, and it also made one of these 180-degree flat turn like it was on a turntable with something going right through the vertical axis with no bank. That's exactly what happened here on the Southern Illinois Triangle case, January 5th, 2000. Okay, let me hit you with the dimensions here according to Officer Ed Barton. This was a 75-degree isosceles triangle, 75 feet in length, 40 feet wide. And he also noticed that there was a white light under each terminating corner and then a red light on the bottom center of the vehicle itself. And that brings us to this interesting statement here. This is from Ed Barton. He says, quote, "As it was going away, it reminded me of the Millennium Falcon out of Star Wars. I mean, that was just the first thing that came to mind. I'm into planes. I built model planes. It was no aircraft, fixed or rotary. There's no way, at least nothing that I know of, I'll put it that way." So I think what he was describing was first this flat turn, like it was on a turntable, and then he got a view of the back end, and it had these vertical slits of illuminated window lighting illuminated from the inside. I think that's exactly what he's describing here. And then as this thing departed, and I did the calculations here, Officer Barton estimated that the craft covered 8 miles to Shiloh in about 3 seconds, equivalent to 9,600 miles per hour. And then he says here, quote, "Its velocity was almost unimaginable, and it made no sonic boom as it departed." Now I want to take you to what Officer David Martin from the Shiloh Police Department, what he saw at 4:25 a.m. And you can see my illustration about 100 yards across. And this is more of a boomerang-shaped craft, almost like a flying wing. Now, he also said that it had 3 white lights on the bottom, and the light did not illuminate the ground. So it's almost like a telescoping light that stops before it hits the ground. What kind of technology is that? And then he made a very interesting description of the understructure of the craft itself, the tubes, the pipes, the cylinders, the mechanical looking understructure. And I've got his direct quote here. This is what he said. "I could actually tell some kind of figures on the bottom of it, as in some kind of style of crafting or steel, almost like I said how building blocks are put together. Almost looked like it was put together in pieces. It wasn't one smooth bottom, almost like pipes." Okay, now the illustration that I came up with, and I thought really hard about how I'm going to put a visual aid to this. And the best way that I can describe this, and I think this is correct, if you went to a steel mill and you saw this molten metal being poured into molds, and then you have these steel plates of different sizes. So it would be like 3 inches thick. It might be 10 feet across by 20 feet in length. And those would be cut up into different lengths. And you started stacking these steel plates upon one another with no gaps in the middle part. That would be, I think, what he's talking about. And that's what you can see in my graphic here. Now, I'm going to ask the question, is this what we would expect to see on the bottom of an alien spacecraft? Or do we have something, are we dealing with something much more closer to home, something man-made? What you're looking at here is a bottom view of the triangular craft seen by Millstadt police officer Craig Stevens. So it's got this concave aft section, and then the rear view shows that vertical panes of windows that were illuminated. So this gives you a good idea of what Craig Stevens saw here. Now, Republic Times, January 12th, 2000. UFO baffles observers. What is shaped like an arrowhead, as big as a football field, 2 stories tall, and flies slowly through the air? This is 4:25 a.m. If you don't know, don't feel bad. People across the Metro East saw an object fitting that description floating slowly overhead early last Wednesday morning, and no one yet has been able to explain what it was. So, a lot of the witnesses said that this craft looked like an arrowhead. So I dug real deep to get kind of a visual aid on what that would look like. And you've got all the arrowheads here. The one on the bottom, I believe, is the closest to what the witnesses were actually describing here. Collinsville Journal, January 16, 2000. Object in sky draws interest of UFO researchers. And then this is very critical here. Officer says he is 98% sure object was experimental or military. I'm going to read that again. Officer says he is 98% sure object was experimental or military. Quote, this thing was huge. It was moving like a blimp from the south at about 500 to 1,000 feet above the ground. I could only hear a very low decibel buzzing sound. Now that's indicative of a high voltage electrical field. Same thing happened with the Hudson Valley Boomerang, 82 to 89. Same thing happened in the Belgium Triangle, 1989, 1990. They all reported this low frequency electrical humming noise like a transformer or a sewing machine. So this is from Collinsville Journal, January 16th, 2000. Now, while this craft is hovering above our primary eyewitness here, Officer Craig Stevens, he made a very interesting statement, and this is what he said, quote, the craft tried to camouflage itself against the night sky and was projecting the star field above it on the underside. So it was using star field camouflage. So if you had this craft hovering above you, what it's able to do through electrochromic panels, it can take an image on what's above the craft, electronically transfer it to the bottom of the vehicle, allowing it to blend in with the night sky. These guys are brilliant. These guys are geniuses. This is exactly what Craig Stevens is talking about here. So, of course, I had to have my good friend Rudy Gardea do a drawing of this. And you can see Officer Craig Stevens. He's pulled off to the side of the road. He's standing next to his vehicle. He pulls out a Polaroid camera from his trunk, and he's snapping a photograph of this. And we've got the constellation of Orion on the bottom of the craft. So I want to give credit to Rudy Gardea here. So here is the full color illustration of the craft hovering above Craig Stevens. He's kind of looking up here, and you can see that concave section at the rear. At this point, we've got the star field of Orion on the bottom of the craft, and I've got the lines in here so that you can see this. Now let's go full transparency here. Let's allow this to blend in with the background, and you're going to end up with something that looks like right here. Whoever or whatever has this technology, it's allowing it to blend in with the star field in the background here. What you're looking at here is the front cover of Popular Science, May 1997. And they have the title here, Top Secret Invisible Aircraft, Daytime Stealth for Future Fighters. Now, if we go back to Desert Storm 1, when the F-117s were bombing downtown Baghdad, all those operations were at night. We now have the technology to do this in the daytime. This is May 1997. So what you're looking at here is a Joint Strike Fighter, and you can see the clouds in the background. Using electrochromic panels described in this article, they have the capability to electronically transfer an image that's in back of the aircraft on the front surface, allowing it to blend in with the background, essentially causing it to become invisible, kind of like a chameleon. That's the technology they have. This is all daytime stealth technology now. So let's go dig deep inside the article here. It says disappearing act. Future aircraft such as Lockheed Martin's proposed Joint Strike Fighter might use visual stealth to blend into the sky. Sensors would measure the sky's brightness and hue, and electrochromic coatings applied over a white skin would change shade to match the background. That's exactly what our witnesses are describing here. Now that takes us to the B-21 Raider by Northrop. And I'm going to ask the question, has this technology already been integrated into our next generation fighters and bombers? Which brings us to an interesting billboard that has been seen all around Los Angeles. Highway 14 north toward Palmdale, Antelope Valley, downtown in Los Angeles. And this is Northrop. It's detectable until it's not. And they've got this shadow of the B-21 inside an empty hangar. The question here is, are they only referring to actual radar stealth and visibility, or are they referring to visual optical stealth? That could be the idea that they're trying to propose here. And it's this technology that I'm thinking may be integrated into what the witnesses of the Southern Illinois Triangle saw on January 5th, 2000. It could be the same exact technology here. Now let's go back to police officer Craig Stevens from Millstadt. He said, the object was making no noise, but I could only hear a very low decibel buzzing sound. That is an indicator of a high voltage electrical charge being utilized within this craft itself for either an electrogravitic propulsion system or a magnetohydrodynamic propulsion system. Illinois Arrowhead, the officers generally agreed that the object was as follows. So this is kind of all the bullet items put together here. The object was enormous. Estimates range between the size of a football field to much larger. Black or very dark in color. The superstructure associated with the triangular boomerang-shaped craft of the Hudson Valley Boomerang between 82 and 89 also mention a very black structure. Triangular or arrowhead shaped, flying between 500 and 1,000 feet above the ground, moving slowly before accelerating rapidly. We've got multiple witness accounts of both the Hudson Valley Boomerang and the Belgium Triangle, where joggers were actually passing these things, silently flying overhead. Illuminated with numerous bright white lights and smaller colored lights, capable of changing direction smoothly without obvious aerodynamic effects. So in a nutshell, these craft are flying not using aerodynamics or the Bernoulli theory of lift. They're using a different advanced propulsion system here. Now I want to go to the National Institute for Discovery of Science. This is NIDS, founded by Robert Bigelow between 1995 and 2000. Here's the findings they came up with here. Civilian witness Melvin Null said the UFO was like, quote, a floating house, and estimated its size as 2 to 3 stories tall and as long as a football field. A police witness from Lebanon described the UFO as a massive elongated triangle and said it was emitting intense white light. The officer stressed that the UFO made no noise, even when it suddenly flew away from its position at very high speed. A police officer in Shiloh said the UFO was shaped like an extra wide arrowhead and had a mechanical-looking understructure. The Millstadt police witness also said the UFO was shaped like a fat arrowhead with the triangular trailing edge somewhat concave. So here's this Craig Stevens talking about this arrowhead vehicle with the white lights at the back and this concave aft section. So when we wrap this up, we've got the civilian witness, Melvin Null. We've got the 3 police officers. They describe flat, horizontal turns, no banking. They describe the white lights that don't go all the way down to the bottom. So we've got this telescoping light technology. We've got a low frequency electrical humming noise, like a sewing machine or a transformer. We've also got this concave section here. We've got departures at very rapid speeds with no sonic boom. So I'm just highlighting, and we want to also follow up with Craig Stevens, who said, quote, he felt that was 98% sure that he was convinced that this craft was a man-made military technology. So when you put this all together, it is pointing toward a man-made technology. I just want to take a few brief moments to thank all of my subscribers and all the people that watch my videos. And I especially want to thank people that leave positive comments, because I really need those inspirational and encouraging thoughts. So thank you again for that. And with that kind of inspiration, it gives me the strength to do more of these videos. So thank you very much.